Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Bob Pompeani. We have a lot to get into, including Jordan Addison, USC Trojan, NIL, the Pittsburgh Steelers about to begin OTAs, but the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown will be the Penguins, who signed Brian Rust. It didn't take all that long. And here to discuss is your panel tonight. We have Colin Dunlap from 93.7 The Fan, The Morning Show, Will Graves, Associated Press, Jason Mackey, Post-Gazette. Colin,
yes.
All of a sudden, Brian Rust is signed. He never even went to free agency.
How about that, Bob?
Are you surprised? And what does it mean for the rest of the guys who are looking for money? That,
to me, is the big question here. I don't know about the rest of the guys looking for money, and maybe Ron Hextall's looking for an extension here, or at least a longer stay in Pittsburgh. I don't know how you get rid of Ron Hextall now that he has wrangled Brian Rust in for 6 more years, all the way through his 36-year-old season. I think you can still do Letang or Malkin. You obviously can't do them both in terms of bringing them back. And I think that Letang is the guy that you make a reach for. For me, I think you can make it happen, and you should make it happen. Plus, that cap will grow in the next 3-4 years. Letang is still doable with Rust. Absolutely.
Jason?
I struggle to believe that, Colin. I want to believe it. I want to see them bring Letang or Gino back, and I think Letang makes more sense. I just think about the money. I think about some of the other needs they have, the goaltending situation. I think we're going to get into that. I would really like to see them add some muscle, not to the goaltending position, of course, but also add some goaltending. And given that number, I don't know if that makes the most sense for them.
I don't know. For me, you know, if Gino really wants to come back, sign a 1-year deal. But what did he say when we were with him on Tuesday? Good players sign good contracts, right? He still thinks he's a good player. And he is, when healthy, a good player. Is he a great player? I mean, that's the thing they're going to have to decide. The gap between where Gino thinks he is and where the Penguins think he is, what does that mean monetarily?
Well, the gap between, though, where Letang is and where the next guy would be in terms of eating minutes, in terms of talent. A lot of people dog Letang, and I'm right there with a lot of people whenever he makes mistakes. But what he gives you in terms of being on the ice and what we see the trickle down when he's not there, I just think it – and plus, he's so in shape that he almost plays 2 or 3 years younger.
Yeah, you would think so.
I want to say he almost feels invaluable.
But because of that, he's too expensive to keep, right? I mean, Montreal, you have to think, is going to throw as many loonies as possible to get him to come home, right? I mean, and end his career there. And he's a guy that I think he values.
His agent is also the GM, by the way.
He values money, as he should. And this is his last chance to cash in. He has had a fantastic year. There is no guarantee that he's going to have as good a year next year. And to Colin's point, I think Mike Matheson would be an okay backup plan if he's going to be that guy, if he's going to be your point man on the power play.
Did you watch the playoffs?
But he was paired together with Letang.
Right, exactly. And I think if you get him with a Dumoulin type guy
really
who's more responsible, they can play off each other. I think that at a lesser value, I think the money would be. Do we really think that they're that close? When you watch the playoffs now, and I will say that as great as the Penn season playoffs was, I'm into the playoffs now. Do you think they're close? I don't think they're. I don't think they're this close.
They think they're close. That's a different thing, and maybe Russ coming back.
Yeah, but you got to look at what that.
Always have to think you're close as long as you employ Sidney Crosby.
Right. Yeah, sure. I agree with that. But would that money be better spent on another player? And it very well might be, because what you're talking about, Colin. I mean, that's not a cheap player. His contract, $7.25 this past one. Take $7.25, spend 5 and change on a D-man, and hopefully get more from Matheson, get more from John Marino, grow a little bit back there, and then you're repurposing those dollars.
If you could somehow fit 9.5 or 10, I'd spend it on Letang. There were times this season, and look, I'm not the biggest Letang fan. There were times in the regular season, Makar was the only better defenseman in the league.
There were spans of 20, given their cap situation.
The Pens need to think about the way the Patriots think, where Sid is Tom Brady, and everybody else is interchangeable. I mean, and that's the thing. The Patriot way is built on, if you get rid of Wes Welker, you get
but they've
Julian
already
Edelman.
made a determination that Rust and Gensel need to be
but
here.
They're young enough. But they're young enough guys that I think you
Rust
can sort
is
of
30.
Yeah, but that's. I mean,
okay, let me ask you this. Colin brought us up about Ron Hextall, because prior to this signing, I thought Ron Hextall is on a bubble here. They have to determine whether or not they want him making all these decisions, and here they are. He made the first big decision, which is signing Brian Rust, and he may have saved his job, Will.
Oh,
how do you look at
They wouldn't have empowered him to make that signing if they thought if they're eyeing their next guy. That just doesn't make any sense. I mean, because then that's a big anchor to hand a new guy if that new guy isn't a Brian Rust guy, right? So the way I say that looks like is basically a tacit endorsement of Ron keeping the job at least through next year.
Yeah, so basically they're in a situation now they're going to have to probably choose between Malkin. So, Jason, if Malkin says, I will take less, I will take 3 years, $18 million, let's say, do you do that
Done.
deal?
I do it.
You do it.
I absolutely do it. I would think you would want to keep Evgeny Malkin here if you can, within reason. You're not going to do anything stupid. You're not going to take him for, I don't know, 9, 10, something like that. But 3 years, $18 million, Pomp, I'm taking that absolutely. And then at that point, I'm probably going to have to punt on Chris Letang and just live with it. But I would absolutely do that with Gino.
If you're picking one or the other, I would pick Letang. If that's the,
I would too. But that's the
but
hypothetical.
At $6 million for Gino, I mean, when's the last time he was healthy for 75% of the games?
I'm not here to dog Evgeny Malkin, but it feels like 5-on-5 hockey, his game has greatly dissipated over the past 3 years.
All right, real quick. In this segment, Jason, start with you. Goaltending. This year was supposed to shed some light on what the goaltending situation is in Pittsburgh. Tristan Jarry is going to get his chance. Casey DeSmith will get a chance. Nobody got their chance. Instead, Louis Domingue.
Right.
So what do we know about the goaltending? Jarry's up for a contract. What do you do with that future money?
I think you punt on the contract, Pomp. I don't think you can
sign him.
Not permanently.
Okay.
I just mean right now. I don't see how you could sign him because I don't think there's an established value. I deal with that on my beat all the time with the Pirates. Like, you're trying to figure out what a guy is worth, and I think because of the playoff stuff and not good playoffs and then one where he was largely missing, I just don't think they have a great idea of what Tristan Jarry is at this point. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think he's a guy that I want playing 65, 70 games. I would like a bigger 1B. At least somebody to take a regular season.
Don't you dare say Marc-Andre Fleury, Pomp.
Don't
you dare
I like the
say
flower, but I'm not going to say it.
Okay.
I
That
won't
would
say
cause
Matt
way
Murray
too many
either.
problems.
I mean, I think, but part of this needs to be a change in Sullivan's approach too, right? I mean, because Sullivan is a guy, when some guy gets hot, he rides him. I mean, probably too much. We've seen that repeatedly throughout his 6 or 7 years here, and I think that's the change in approach. Sully has to say, we're going to cap you at 50 starts. $3 million a year for a goaltender for Jarry. I mean, he hasn't earned a pay bump like Brian Russ, but I mean, if you could get him in, I think he's fine. Now, is fine going to win you the Stanley Cup?
Yeah.
I don't
If
know.
I was Jarry, I'm not sure I'd sign that deal right now. I'd want to
If
play out
he
what
has
you
a
have.
if he has a big year coming up, the
Then
price
you
goes up.
cash in
and
then, right?
Yeah,
Time's
so
to wait.
We got to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Steelers because they go to OTA starting this week. Who is the biggest story not named Kenny Pickett? That's coming up next right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown.